Hi, I'm Gloria Grice, Executive Director of the Needham History Center and Museum. And today we're pleased to have this brief interview with Bob Larsen to talk a little bit about his artistic career and his cartooning with the Needham Times. So, Bob,
Hey.
although we all associate you with the cartoons, you did in fact have a long career as a commercial artist, doing illustrations, advertising work, as well as fundraising campaigns like the effort to restore Old Ironsides and the Washington National Cathedral. You were an art student at Yale, and then the Korean War intervened. How did you start up your career after the war?
After the war, I came home and I had a sketch pad in my hand for the 6 months that I was over there. And I wanted to brush up on my illustration drawing ability, so I went to the Rhode Island School of Design for 1 year with my wife, who went along and got a part-time job while I stayed there for a year taking new refresher courses. And a relative of my wife's was familiar with the General Electric Company, and one of its division managers was in charge of all of the advertising for General Electric Company, and particularly their catalogs. And they hired me, and I moved up to Schenectady, New York, and with my son, who crawled under the car and got grease all over him, and had a wonderful time up there. And I stayed there, employed for 9 years. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, we got to get out of here. Why don't you go with me down to Boston? There's an advertising agency that wants to open a branch. It's in New York, that wants to come to Boston and open a branch, and you could come down and be my art director." And so I said, "Well, sure, what else is there?" So it all played out, and that's what happened, and I came to Boston.
Your first advocacy cartoon was the Dear John sketch in 1954, protesting the neglect of Korean War POWs by the American government. The format of the single panel plus caption sketch, so familiar in opinion cartooning, became your means of expression.
Well, the one that inspired me when I got back from Korea was the situation with the United States government. They were not taking enough advantage of information about prisoners of war that we knew were still missing in Korea and held prisoner. And I drew an illustration. It was never published. It was just something that I did. Nothing came of it, but I was happy that I had at least made an effort. And then I came to Needham. That was the start of trying to make a living, if you will, as an artist. What choices are there? I was academically not gifted, so it was of necessity. I knew I could draw. That came as a result of always being told, "Bob daydreams, and he's always got a picture he's putting in front of him in school." So I was not a grade A student at all. But I did want to draw and paint.
Let's get to the Needham Times cartoons, the work of yours that is most familiar to Needhamites. How did that come about as a regular weekly feature? Some of the cartoons are social, the first day of school, town events, Ida May on the skateboard showing that she still has a few moves. Others spoke more directly to the issues that we were grappling with in town: overrides, building renovations, town meeting attendance. How did you choose your weekly topic, and what were your guidelines? What made you say, yeah, that's what I want to draw?
I certainly wanted them to be noticed and politically correct at the same time without being cruel. So I would lie awake in the morning and read the Needham Times, and so I would sit down and I would come to life with an idea for a drawing, which I then put down as finished art, and I submitted it at will to the Needham Times office, which is located in Needham, and they had the option to reject it or accept it. But they kept accepting them. one after the other. And that made me feel real good and even more inclined to be their cartoonist with no pay. But then I finally started to charge, I think it was $50 a week, and they paid it, but they acknowledged that I was not on their payroll. And then I got the award for the Cartoonist of the Year from the New England Press Association, and that was the highlight of my career as a cartoonist. And then, of course, you began to put some of my work aside for the History Museum. And then I started to land illustrations I did on the Needham telephone book cover, which depicted a lot of scenes familiar to everyone in Needham. That further enhanced my reputation as a real artist. I went on faking it from there, but no, I had a wonderful, wonderful career.
When we moved to Needham, your cartoons were in the paper, and I remember distinctly every week people would look at the cartoon and say, "What's Bob saying this week?" And it would be a topic of conversation all over town. Everybody read them. And I also remember fondly when I'd run into you at Montego Bay. I'd go in for a cup of coffee, and there you'd be, and we'd have our morning chat over our coffee before I went back to work and you went back to work.
Yeah, that was a favorite. Every morning I would go downtown. I had opened a studio in downtown Needham on the second floor of what was the old post office building around the street from Harvey's hardware store, which is now no longer. And I stayed there. I had a desk, a drawing table, and I started, hey, I could do portraits here. There was enough room. And I had a lot of friends, so I started asking them, would you like a portrait done of your mother or father? I did several pairs of portraits that are now still in their family. And that was another feather in my cap.
Well, the History Center has a beautiful portrait of Sid Diamond in his town crier outfit. And that portrait is on display in our lobby. You see it as soon as you walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've done several of Henry Hicks.
That's right.
As well.
Well, the History Center has been very, very kind to me, and even made the illustration I did of the History Museum from the outside of the building that is now blown up the size of a tablecloth.
We use it for a lot of things. It's still my best picture of the house, and in fact we just put it on a card we made.
You just said the right words. Good for you.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for the work you've done and for the town, for so many contributions over the years.
Thank you. That was fun.